compare poverty and extreme poverty rates between China and the United States. So the World Bank defines extreme poverty as living in a household making less than $2.15 a day, think $600, $700 a year. And this chart demonstrates the Chinese growth miracle. Over the past 50 years, extreme poverty, both in the urban environments and in the Chinese rural environments, has been eliminated. To give context, in 1980, 80% of China was living below this threshold. Poverty is the default position in nature. Anytime any human society overcomes it, it's a miracle. My dog is in a donut. The other one too. The progress has been more than that. Here we can look at less than $10 a day or $3,600 a year. Again, this is all adjusted for inflation and differences in cost of living between the countries by purchasing power parity. You can really see the progress in the past 20 years and that this progress is probably going to keep going. Bring that up to $40 a day. Now we see that around 20 to 30% of the United States is experiencing significant financial hardship. We see extreme levels of poverty are being left behind and that a growing portion of China is now entering the global middle class. We can see the differences between the US and China by other measures. This is the share of the population that cannot afford a healthy diet in 2022. We had around 17% of China had that, whereas 2.5% of the United States experienced this threshold. When we make a more extreme definition, that is the share of the population that cannot afford a calorie-sufficient diet, China now drops down to 4.7. That's not that different from the United States' 2.2%. Now, I really like this one. This is showing the affordability of groceries, the share of consumer expenditure spent on food. It's 20% in China, 14% in the island in the Pacific, and then 6.7% in the US. Now this, importantly, it doesn't include restaurants. It's just food at home, groceries. These are like average figures. A lot of people will be spending a lot more and richer folks will be spending significantly less. Now, one critique is that measures of income won't take into account vacation days or sick leave. That's true, so I think we should also look at the amount of hours worked. And in the United States, your average worker works 400 hours less per year compared to China. Employees work less today than they did in the 60s. China saw kind of a bump up in the late 90s. That's when they really started growing and working, formally working in the marketplace was one of the causes. One area where we do see basic equality is life expectancy. This graph goes back to 1932 and we just see the tremendous past 90 years in China catching up to the global standard of health. Incidentally, you can see the Great Famine here in the late 50s, but afterwards they came out stronger than before. If we zoom in just to the past decade or so, we see that the US life expectancy dipped down. This was due to both COVID as well as the opioid epidemic. However, things have returned. In 2023, the United States life expectancy was a little over 1 year longer than China, but these things are hard to measure. We're basically in the same ballpark by now. And so there you go. The average standard of living in the United States is much better than that of China. However, there are hundreds of millions of Chinese people who are living just as good, if not better, than many Americans. And this tremendous progress over the past 40 years has largely been due to the market openings started by the reforms of Deng Xiaoping in the early 80s, the benefits of global free trade, lots of investment in public education, infrastructure, health, plus a large dose of economic freedom.